back live. So we'll see how that, if that goes. If nobody joins, then we'll just shut it off. How's the 340 build? It is absolutely nothing. Nothing is done to the 340. It has a downpipe and an MHD2, and that's it. So probably 2 weeks or so, I'll be able to post a video on it, updating you guys on how it's going. Let's see, we got another question. Might sound like a new question, but do I switch to my E30 map before or after pumping the mix? Oh, I can't see the whole question. Or what's the proper way of doing it? Okay, so for me personally, I flash before pumping because I feel like there's a higher risk of having a flash issue than a pump issue, if that makes sense. But that doesn't mean like there's no risk there. But, you know, if your car battery is low and like the flash stops in the middle or something, like I feel like that's a higher risk than turning on the pump and like it doesn't take your credit card or whatever, or it's empty. So usually I flash, I get to the pump, make sure everything looks good. There's no like tape around it or whatever. And then I flash the tune in front of the pump and then I fill up with my mix. If you get your mix wrong, just drive it slowly. Try to burn off, you know, whatever 1 or 2 gallons, and then go back to the tank and fill up with the right mix. All right. I own an M240 rear-wheel drive auto. If I put the M Performance LSD in the rear, will I need to have the car reprogrammed not to use the rear brakes anymore? I wouldn't do that personally. The ELSD, I feel like, is kind of a marketing thing. And I know everybody's going to tell you something different because of how it felt. They got it tuned and it was so much better or whatever. It's like the same thing with the brakes. I was told I was going to need to code my car for the big brake kit. Never did that. It drives fine. So I think that some of that isn't as big of a deal or noticeable as people might think. But you still want your brakes to work. I mean, your brakes are part of your traction control system and everything else. When I'm in Sport Plus, the car will spin and go sideways and I can control it really easily, because it doesn't let you get completely like out of whack while you can put it full DSC off, and then it just disables that anyway. So I don't really think I would do any coding, even if that was an option. Just leave the traction control as is. It works really well when you want it on, and you can still disable it when you don't. Personal opinion. M340 or 4-cylinder Supra? Scroll. Do it before, just so you can make sure the flash and not get stuck. Yeah, that's the same thing that I do. And I mean, because I had boot mode for, like I said, 2.5 years. I haven't had any flash issues with it. I was flashing with a laptop for like literally the first year when everybody was making the Raspberry Pi device and everything. I was bringing my laptop with me to the gas station and flashing it there, and I never had any issues. Then I switched to my phone, never had any issues. So personally, I don't feel like it's a problem. Now I do all of my flashing with like an MG flasher dongle, and I flash MG flasher, MHD, and boot mode all with that dongle. Again, no issues. I'm assuming the MHD dongle is the same as well. So, yeah. All right, we got some people on YouTube. Everybody's laughing. I must have said something stupid. I apologize for nothing. Do you think I should buy the UltraFlow? I have a TU pump, but I'm planning on upgrading to a DS2. So I bought a DOCRace kit with a TU pump. No regrets. It was cool testing it out. I found out it was limited to around 600 wheel horsepower, and that's with like a really dialed in tune and an ethanol mix. If you're not running ethanol, if you're just running pump gas, you won't have any issues. If you are planning on running ethanol, just keep in mind that an ethanol mix will make the most power. So figure out your goals, figure out what fuel you want to run, and go from there. Oh, that was the A90 question. That probably should have phased me more. I just read it and told you kick rocks. All right. Oh, you said looking for 550 to 630. Just get a DS2. Door Stage 2 can help you get there easily with an ethanol mix. For sure. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody, for subscribing. All that good stuff. Thank you, everybody on YouTube. I'm going to be posting a video after this live stream just to explain the channel membership deal. But just to keep everybody's minds at ease, no, I'm not charging to watch videos on the channel. No, I'm not charging to subscribe. All of that will be the exact same. So I think some people unsubscribed because they thought I was like begging for money and stuff. That's fine, but I do feel like the kind of crowdfunding aspect will help us make more videos. And then if I give you guys the parts back, like it's a win-win. So yeah, I'll explain all of that in a future video. Just trolling. Yeah, I got you, bro. You're fine. Let's see. How much horsepower would I gain? Oh, okay. So I know you have been asking me a lot of questions about this carbon tune and things that carbon are saying. And I've seen a couple other people ask me as well why I don't talk about dyning and things like that. So the biggest thing about dyning is they are hyper focused on like reliability, emissions, compliance, all of that good stuff. So if they could go work at BMW and make like the M Performance tune, they would, right? Like that's their goal, to make something that can be used across the country with a full warranty and all that good stuff. Now, what that means is they operate just like BMW. So they put minimal gains in their options and charge a lot of money for it. So that's why I don't really recommend Carbon and Dynan. No, there's nothing wrong with them, but they're like the lowest power to value option on the market. So that's why I would say just stick with boot mode or MHD or MG Flasher. You'll get more power, more options, more like customization at your fingertips without having to go to a dealer and get things changed. So that's my only hang up on them. There's nothing like wrong with the software, but it's not really worth it in my opinion. All the other ones are really reliable too. I am not streaming on Twitch. A lot of people have asked me about expanding my reach. I've been asked to make a Twitch, to make a Discord, all this other stuff. It might happen in the future, but this is not like my full-time gig or anything. And I don't know how much time I can commit to all of those different platforms. So for now, it's just TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook. But yeah, I mean, let me know if you guys really want to push for something like Twitch, because I'm working on my car sometimes. I could stream stuff like that. OnlyFans. Yeah, so I'm working on Only Bays. That's going to be coming out, and you guys can stare at the engine bay for $5 a month. I experience difficulties when my engine starts first cold start in the morning with full E85. So if you have a custom tune, it's normal, but well, I'll say it's typical. What I would say is that you need to talk to your tuner if you want to get that fixed. I had the same issue in my car when it was below, like I think 50 degrees or something. There were a couple cold days that I drove with full E85, but there are settings that your tuner can adjust in your tune to help it start a little bit better even when it's cold. But it's typical for E85 to be more difficult to start. And I mean, that's a part of the reason why you guys need to test the ethanol content at your gas station, because they will lower ethanol content in the winter so that people that want to still run flex fuel and run E85 don't have difficulties cold starting their car. So that's why it can vary between seasons and stuff. Is 21 pounds of boost normal for stage 2 HPFP? Now it is. It wasn't, a year ago or 2 years ago. When I ran stage 2 plus, the last time I did, I ran, I think, 19 PSI, 18 to 19. And then over time, it just started making more and more boost, more and more power. I don't know what they're really doing to stretch it out, but they're making it work. I think they're just finer tuning the car. But of course, there's always a risk there, especially if you guys don't have a super strong fuel system and super good fuel quality. It's not always going to be the same. So log your car, make sure it's running well. And that's the master information you need. I can't tell you anything, like I can't confirm anything without that data. Let's see. I appreciate it, man. And I mean, keep in mind again, because my channel is not made to be like a TV show, right? I'm not just vlogging my life and walking around town. I'm mostly creating stuff for people to search for. So I just make videos answering different questions and talking about stuff I learned. So the fact that people subscribe and like literally watch as soon as I post videos and stuff, that's major. I really, really do appreciate it. Let's see. Got another question on Instagram. Or I thought I did. Looks like it went away. All right. Thanks for all the help. I'm not interested in getting into mixes or any type of fuel beyond 93. As a hybrid, still a solid goal to achieve the 500s. Yep. That's pretty much right where you can expect to be. Between 500 and 550 on a hybrid is pretty typical on pump gas. And I know people always ask me, is it worth it to upgrade your turbo on pump gas? Well, you're going to make more on a big turbo with pump gas than you would on the stock turbo with pump gas. So if all you want to run is pump gas, it's worth it. Don't worry about what everybody else is doing. If everybody else is running E85 and nitrous and stripping out their interior and putting plastic in place of their windows, like, so what? They want to be fast. If you just want to have fun and enjoy your car without having to chase all these records and looking for, different gas pumps that can sell you flux capacitor fuel, then just enjoy your car. You'll have a good time. Nobody can tell you otherwise. Let's see. Yeah, I logged my car yesterday. It's E40 and had 0 corrections. Yeah, man, then you're solid. I mean, I still feel like I could have made a lot more power on my car with that custom tune if I had just run like E30 or E40. I think that's one thing I'm probably more curious about. If I regret one thing, it's not doing a custom tune on the TU pump and seeing how far it could go. That's actually a good point. I do wish I knew, because if I hit 480 on full E85, I definitely would have been over 500, which is basically what the other tuning companies are hitting now. So I bet I could have been in the same position. Again, it would have sucked because I would have paid for a custom tune and then free off-the-shelf maps would have come out making the same power. But it would have been cool to see, like, I made over 500 wheel on an ethanol mix with just a TU pump, because that was really my goal. I wanted 500 wheel. I just didn't hit it. But yeah, we'll see. I will have plenty of time to test stuff on the 340. Yeah, again, appreciate the support, man. I'm trying not to make the videos too long, but I know some of the more recent ones are longer, so I'll do what I can to just shut up. When gapping spark plugs, is the feeler gauge supposed to have a bit of a bite? Yeah, it's basically just supposed to barely drag. So you don't want to feel like you're shoving it in there and having to yank it out. It should just feel like it's sliding along the surface. That's when it's perfect, because you really don't want it to have a whole lot of contact or potentially damage the tip. Alex, what's up, man? Hope you're doing good. I saw, I forgot his name, but he bought an M3. He got rid of the 370 and bought an M3. So hopefully if you come back to Cincinnati sometimes, we can kick it. I have a B58 been subbed. When you mod it. Oh, yeah, bro. Oh, if you're on stock horsepower, that's the easiest thing. And like the absolute best modification I ever did was my stage 1 tune. And somebody else posted in the group today that they flashed stage 1 and it didn't make a difference. Like, you are crazy. That was the most noticeable change after driving my car for 2.5 years on the stock tune. Flashing stage 1, immediate difference. Upgraded to E30, immediate difference. No other modifications on the car, just the tune. And you're adding like 80 wheel horsepower. It's hard to argue with that. So highly, highly recommend it. Is a high pressure fuel pump on a hybrid still good, or would you say Dorch stage 1? I don't know if I understood that correctly, but it just depends on your horsepower goals. So if you're good with like 500 to 600 horsepower, Dorch stage 1 is fine. If you want more than that, get a Dorch stage 2. So I'm supposed to get my plugs to 0.021. I'm guessing you're tuned by Carrie. Just random thought in the dark. So no, I don't recommend gapping your plugs personally. Usually gapping plugs is a band-aid because of some other issue with the tune, but I have not seen a significant improvement in timing or performance when I gap my plugs. Again, just my experience. After I said that out loud, a bunch of people said that they were having the same experience, but I guess your mileage can vary. But I only know of one tuner that's still recommending people to gap their plugs, especially for basic stock turbo tunes. And if you're having misfires and other issues, I feel like it's a tuning issue, not a plug issue. And you can always send me a log too if you want me to check it out. I think you've actually already sent me a DM, but just bump it and I'll check it out after the live stream. Let's see. And I appreciate it, guys. Thank you for the support. Again, I'm going to be posting up a video after this talking about the channel membership, so you guys can check that out later tonight or tomorrow whenever you are interested. Let's see. It's pretty hard to get an E-blend in the UK. What would you recommend for a setup using pump fuel only? Again, you got to determine your goals first. How much power do you want to make? How fast do you want to be? Anything can work. There are a lot of things that can work. So I know a lot of people in the UK also like running meth because the same reason they don't want to find E85. So that's always an option. But if you just want to run pump gas, you can make any turbo setup work. You'll just be limited by fuel. Or limited by octane, I should say. Let's see. Yeah, again, see, I got people backing me up, man. Going from stock to stage one. Nothing else can give you the improvement percentage-wise going from stock to stage one. That's like a 30% or 40% bump in power, something stupid. Even going from stage 2+ to big turbo, like you might get a similar amount of horsepower improvement, but percentage-wise, like it's not the same amount of gains for most setups. Also, I'm just reading this again. So you're saying you're getting misfires after 100 miles per hour at 5,000 to 6,000 RPM. Double check your IATs because it's really common that your IATs will go up. And then once you get past a certain point, it'll cause misfires because it's so hot. So check that in your logs. Should I say for a Dorch or just get a TU? Do you want to make 600 horsepower, 500 to 600, or do you want to make more than that? That's the decision you got to ask. How fast does my turbo spool up? So I see peak boost around 3,500 RPM. It kind of depends. Like in colder weather, it spools a little bit faster, but right around now, it's spooling around 3,500 RPM, and that's, I guess, like 24 to 25 PSI. And then my boost ramps up towards redline. I hit 29 PSI at redline, but we're limiting boost through the rev range to keep my clutch happy. So we're kind of forcing the turbo not to do as much work as it potentially could. What's the best mix for our cars? I'm trying to run below 12 in the quarter. Bro, what? If you can't get below 12s in the quarter on your flow max, you need to double check your tune, even on pump gas. That doesn't matter. Double check your tune, double check your setup. That should be like at least an 11-second car all day. And there are people running high 10s on pump gas with a flow max. And I mean, again, keep in mind, your quarter isn't all about power, right? So what's your tire setup? Where are you running? Where are you shifting? How are you launching? Look at the full scope of everything that you're doing to do your quarter-mile run. But every bit of 11 seconds is possible with that with that setup. Let's see, going for turbo system stage 2. I wish more people would try turbo systems, turbos, man. I do honestly wish that. Not so much because I think they're better. I just want to see something different. And I think they're just as capable. They just don't have like the same marketing as some of the other turbo kits. They don't have people active in the forums and things like that to push them. But people in Europe know. A lot of those guys run the turbo systems, turbos. And the TU is enough. Again, same thing. If you want to make less than 600 horsepower, the TU will get you there. If you're only running pump gas, you won't run out of fuel with the TU. What are my thoughts on the split-second controller? So that's a case of something that works, but there are much better options out there. And if you're going with port injection, typically you have a lot of other things right on the horizon, right? So you're going to be running ethanol. You might add a low-pressure fuel pump. Depending on your turbo setup, you might have an external turbo. And so when you do that, you're going to want something that can use all of that data when it's tuning your car. And that's where reflex is king. You can control all of your fueling, nitrous, anything that you have going on in your car, all in one controller, and everything will communicate together. And the best part is, especially with MHD, if you have a problem with something and it puts it into limp mode, it cuts everything. So you don't have to worry about one controller trying to flood your car with fuel just because it thinks you're running 30 PSI when really you're limping around town. So yeah, I mean, it works. People have made it work for years. I almost had one on my GLI because that was one of the more common options, 5 years ago or whatever. But now that we have the reflex available, it's hard to recommend anything else. But I know like people like to say one stock F30, he had an AIC controller on his car for a while. He ran low tens with it. So it works. It's just not the best. Can I run an off-the-shelf map on a Pure 800? So you definitely can, run a log, have your tuner or send it to me, somebody to review it and make sure it's safe. And then that'll answer your question. At what point do IATs start affecting timing? So I think it's 65 degrees Celsius. I can't remember what that translates to in Fahrenheit, but it's like 150 or 160. And that's when it starts pulling power. Kai, thank you for joining the channel. Appreciate it. If you didn't see me explain that earlier, I'm posting a video later to let you know how the channel memberships work. I just changed my oil and I put in a half quart too much oil. Should I drain a little? Gosh. So double check your iDrive. It'll tell you if it's overfilled. I've overfilled mine a little bit and not had an issue. Keep in mind, you never drain all of your oil out anyway. So it's pretty much always a little bit higher than the 6.5 liters or whatever. But if your iDrive says that it's above max, then I would probably drain a little bit. If it's not showing on your iDrive and you can't read that it's any higher than max, then it's probably fine. You're tuned by Sammy. Yeah, just double check, man. I mean, I have a hard time with that one. And I'll try to go back and check it again. Like I said, Brandon, just bump our messages in my DM so that I can see it. And I'll see if I see anything else, but that's not typical. Oh, man, you had bad luck too. I know he makes a lot of fast cars, so maybe it just depends on the setup. Just double check your logs, make sure your whole setup is clean and everything's sealed up, and go from there. Okay. I mean, I had a similar issue too. I went through probably 3 revisions with OdinTuned. When I was dialing in my car, it was breaking up, misfiring every time after my shift. I told him eventually when I started making more power, I was only comfortable doing like a 4th gear pull because the car kept spinning 3rd gear and I didn't want to do something stupid on the street. So usually I test it separately to see if it's misfiring, but I haven't had that issue ever since then. It was some kind of limiter in my log. And I don't think I could see it in my logs, but he was able to dig through the tables and figure out where the limiter was. Yeah, MPPSK to stage 1 is probably the smallest difference you'll feel. So if you go from that, especially like ACN 91, I've heard it's almost the same. But if you get stage 193 or E30, you should feel it for sure. Let's see, what is the IAT point? Hopefully that's the same question I answered earlier. Let's see. All right, we're back on YouTube. Installing a CTS turbo on my Super here next week, but I'll be waiting on the tune. There are limited videos on it. Have you heard any recent feedback? So I've seen 2 people install it. One person dynoed it, didn't really do anything crazy, but they didn't have, they didn't have port injection, I think. They either didn't have port injection or a transmission. So whatever the case, they were basically limiting the tune. So, it made just what any other hybrid would make. The tuner themselves said they felt like it was spooling faster than any other turbo out there. That's probably debatable, but it should be a solid option. I think we just need to wait. Most of these turbos will make power, right? The biggest thing is how long. So I haven't heard any negative feedback, but I think that's a big question. People are waiting like 3 to 6 months and seeing if people are still having good luck with it. Any interest in doing the Dazzle platform? Honestly, so I've talked about the 340. Like, I'm not in love with it. I'm never gonna keep that car forever. The 440 I'm gonna have forever, but the 340 is gonna move on. So I don't know what I'm gonna switch to next. It might be something like that. I really wanted an RS5 or an S5 before I got the 440, but they didn't come in manual. And I was always like a Volkswagen kid, so Audi's was always like what I was looking at. And then after that, I was looking at the RS3, same deal. So I just kind of stopped paying attention to Audi at that point. But if it was something to replace the 340 in like 2 years or something, I would consider an RS3. I think there are probably other options on the table by then too. Like, I wouldn't mind trying an M340 if I could get one for cheap used, or maybe even like an X3 or something like that. There's something different. What's my opinion on air suspension? Do I think it holds up, or just go coilovers? I would always go with coilovers if you're focused on performance, for sure. Air suspension works, but it's kind of like all season tires. Like, you can track your car on all season tires, but the limit's going to be lower. It's going to be less predictable. It's just going to have like a lower limit. And it's the same thing with air suspension. It's going to be less predictable. Typically, the compression is not consistent, or the actual like the force that's being applied by the air spring isn't consistent. I know a lot of people try to use advanced controllers to help it take advantage of how much you can customize the air suspension and keep it flat in turns and things like that. But I don't see the limits being higher than coilovers. So, but everything on our cars has a trade-off. So if you just really like the look, go for it. You'll enjoy it either way. I saw the recent upload about MHD Flex Fuel. Do you get the same quality of tune versus using the E40 map? So, that's literally what I explained in the video, right? The E40 map is what you're going to run when you have exactly an E40 mix on a flex fuel tune. The only difference is, like, for people like me, I run E45 on an E40 tune just to make sure my timing's perfect, and regardless of temperature and other conditions, I'm always getting the best performance. If you do that on a flex fuel tune, if you go up to E45 or E50, it's going to start going back down that line towards full E85. So it's the only thing that I feel like is a limitation. You can't take advantage of that. And if you really want to go full send, if you've got a race or whatever, just flash the E40 map with whatever mix you have, E45, E50, whatever is safe, and that'll give you the best amount of power. But if you've got really good ethanol, really good pump gas, and on your E40 map with E40 you don't get timing corrections, then it'll be the exact same. I just don't know anybody that has good quality gas. Let's see. Oh, it's a 540. Okay. I'm sorry. I should have asked that question. That's kind of like what I'm talking about too, right? So no matter what turbo setup, no matter how much horsepower you make, there are so many other factors that play into your quarter mile. With a 540, it's definitely going to be harder to run a fast time. Hopefully you at least have all-wheel drive and a good tire, but I still feel like you should be able to get at least into the 11s with a Flow Max and a pump gas tune. So different things that work. Like I said, make sure your shift points are locked in. Check out your load curve in your tune to just see where your power band is. Make sure you're not shifting too early or too late. Launch in second, dial in your XHP settings so that all of that is optimizing your run. And yeah, you should be able to get there. Is MPR 1200 terrible for a street setup? It's only terrible if you don't like really loud noise and you don't like going really fast. Otherwise, it's great. Yeah, I see you guys talking. Again, talk to your tuner too, man, because I know he's knowledgeable. He knows a lot about how to get the most out of our car. Unless you're really having some other limiting factor, I have a hard time with that. The E70 is kind of odd too. If you don't have port, pull it back. Run like E40. E40, maybe even E50, but E40 has always been the sweet spot for me. I, I'm reading you guys' conversation. I just know there's a lot that can play into it. So I definitely recommend reviewing your logs. Send me your logs too if you haven't already. Let's figure out what's going on. If you're if you're gutted with one seat, you should be off the charts. You should be doing something nutty. That's funny. Did you guys just become best friends? What's the stock turbo record right now? It's at 10.5. Oh yeah, somebody answered you below. See, the thing about it too, because I know a lot of people say like their 60 to 130 is slow. I mean, are you paying attention to the environmental conditions and stuff? Because I was able to get a 9.1 on stock turbo on the Stage 2 Plus E30 map. So if you're in an M240, you should definitely be able to go faster. So I'm wondering if you got really high DA, really weird tire setup. You know, again, sometimes like going to a more aggressive tire will make your car slower because there's more friction, there's more grip, it's going to be more resistance. You know, so just think about everything, not just the tune. Especially if you're really trying to go full send, sometimes you can inadvertently do something that actually makes you slower. Am I in Florida? No, I'm in Ohio, man. It's almost the same, except none of the cool stuff. How much heavier is an M340 compared to an F30? So the biggest thing I think is that you can get a stripper like F30, right? Like you have no interior options and all that stuff. Whereas the M340 pretty much comes loaded for all intents and purposes. So I think the lightest 340 compared to an M340 is probably around 100 to 150 pounds lighter. Now, if you get a fully loaded 340, it's probably closer to like 50 to 100, but it just depends. And the 340 is almost as light as an M240. Like an M240 is 50 pounds lighter than a 340, but then the 440 is almost like 70 to 100 pounds heavier than a 340. So it jumps up quite a bit. Did anybody experience a problem after filling up your car with gas? It starts funny. Always when switching to 93. Yeah, so I mean, if you're switching between E85 and 93, it'll stumble a little bit. If you're not doing that, I know like multiple people have messaged me recently telling me that their pump, like after they fill it with gas or cold start or whatever, it just stumbles a little bit. I've probably had that issue once. Like out of everything that I can think of, out of all my experience, it's not very common, but it's common enough that I've heard of it multiple times and people just kind of ignore it. If you get a code, that'll give you a lot more insight. But if it's just like having a rough cold start and you have cold start disabled, turn it back on. If all of that's good and it's still running a little bit rough, just keep an eye on it. Maybe run some logs and see if anything shows in your logs. RS3 is bad. Yeah, I agree. And I mean, that's why I was looking at an S5 because, again, I'm not worried about being the lightest, fastest car out there. I like that size of vehicle, and a coupe is like what I like. So I really wanted a manual RS5, and they finally switched from the V8s to like a turbo 6. So I felt like that was going to have a lot more capability. But yeah, it just didn't work out. The RS3 is so much smaller, so much less like inside. It looks like a budget car that they just slapped like a huge, powerful engine in front of it. You can tell. So it's kind of unfortunate. I like the seats and the steering wheel. I mean, that's pretty much all Audi does, right? Killer seats, best in class cluster. But the problem, like even with the RS3, it's like they almost forgot to put the actual like screen in there. Like it's like tacked on. It doesn't look like they designed it to be a premium car, and then they remembered they had to for people in America. And I also hate dual clutches. You guys just reminded me. So that's another reason why I probably wouldn't enjoy it. I could own it for a little while, but I couldn't make that like my dream car or something. Let's see, E50 versus full E85. So E50 will make more power on most setups, especially if you don't have port injection. But I am racing for full E85 on my setup because I miss it so much. It's just so much more convenient, smells better, drives better, logs are so much better. So if you can set your car up to run full E85, do it. But it depends on your setup whether it'll actually make more power or not. Could running water injection for IATs change the tune? It won't change the tune because everything in your tune is designed to compensate for your other sensors. So IATs is one. Your airflow readings, boost, all of that stuff is a part of the calculation for how your car should run, how the timing should work, and things like that. So, I mean, the same way that driving in winter doesn't mess up your car if you tune it in the summer, cooling off your IATs won't mess up the tune. It'll just take advantage of the full capacity of the map. All right, that was the 5-second poker face. I do it sometimes by mistake, so thanks for reminding me. 440 fully modded with an LSD or an M4. So I don't like M4s. I don't like the S55. I don't like how much it costs to modify. The only thing that I wish I had were the wider fenders from like the M3. But on the M4, it doesn't look as good. Like BMW only makes the 4-door M's look proper with like wide hips and good fender lines. And for whatever reason on the M4s, they like try to blend it in and it just doesn't look as aggressive. So I'm a big fan of the 440. The only thing I wish it was wider so it could fit more tire, but I think it looks better and everything about it is just more sleek to me. And I like the look of the M Sport bumpers more than the M bumpers. Personal preference. Let's see, when you guys fill up with E85, do you put in E85 first or pump gas first? Yeah, man. I mean, you can do it literally either way. It's like the ice cream person asking you, do you want vanilla on bottom or chocolate? Like, it's going to mix as soon as you drive away. Just go for it. Can I convert a custom tune to a flex fuel tune? Yes, sir. Just reach out to your custom tuner. I think most everybody charges quite a bit for that right now. I just actually started looking at pricing for other people, and it kind of depends. So consider what your goals are and go from there. Like, ask them what your options are, and that'll help you pick what you want to do. Do I have a built motor? I do not. Stock motor, stock transmission. I just have an upgraded clutch. Oh, maybe he was asking you. B58 is moving, bro. Get out of that N55. I know you love that car, but your wheels will fit on a 440 too. Just saying. If not, you can send them to me. Would I ever build my motor? When I get my next car, I will consider building the motor in the 440. That's currently my thought process. Same DA, same temp. Man, that makes no sense. I got to see it, man. I don't know. It's hard to say from here. Because I notice there's a pretty big difference depending on DA and stuff. But if everything's the same and it's just not running faster, if you can see more boost and more timing in your logs and it's not running faster, it's got to be something else in your setup. I'm running 19 PSI of boost on 93, and I think I'm going to go E50, but I'm all-wheel drive. Launch is pretty garbage tires, but I'm not spinning. I mean, if you're not spinning, it's probably not a big deal. It really just depends, but you might also be spinning and not realizing it because your tires don't always necessarily light up. If you just kind of see the traction control light, then it's pulling power, you know? So there are some things to consider there too. But 19 PSI on 93, I think you can probably push a little more too. It might just depend. I've seen people run up to like 23 to 24 PSI on 93. Just low timing, but especially with a big turbo, boost will help you carry power more than timing. Anyone experience hesitation or jerk at parking lot speeds? Yes, pretty common, even in my manual transmission. Let's see, what do I think about the new 440? I hate how it looks, but everything else from a performance standpoint should be good. So once those DMEs become unlocked, I think we'll get a much better idea of what that means, like how those cars perform, because we just don't have an idea right now. And just like with S58 cars, the M2 is going to, in my opinion, look way better and perform way better than the M3 and M4. And I think the same thing for the 40Is. I think the M240 is going to be the one that kills it compared to the M340 and M440. Yep, B58 exhaust note is way better than S55. Absolutely. What's up? What's up? Thank you guys for joining again. I'll be posting a video right after this to explain the channel membership, so check that out later if you're interested. Let's see, I'm getting a cash can as soon as I can go back home, which is 700 miles away. Is it recommended or required? I mean, it's not. Depending on your turbo setup, you're probably not going to be able to run the stock crankcase ventilation because a lot of them delete the inlet for the intake. If you have just like a hybrid turbo, then it shouldn't matter. But most people don't have any blow-by, especially on a Gen 1. Our cars run really clean, good emissions, limited blow-by, no real oil consumption. So I don't really see it as a requirement. All right, yeah, if you sent me a message, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Let's see, is the Dorch Stage 2 worth it if your goal is to max the stock turbo? So the curve with how your power comes in with a high pressure fuel pump looks like this, right? So down at low RPM, it's low. And then as you get up to high RPM, you're able to flow more. So if you have a TU, it's like this. If you have a Dorch Stage 2, it's like this. So down low, the gains are small, but up top, the gains are big. You can see a small improvement in how much boost you can run down low, but your stock turbo is going to run out up top. So that's why a Dorch Stage 2 makes a bigger difference with a big turbo than it does with a stock turbo. If you're absolutely just trying to max out the stock turbo, usually they recommend port injection because then you're not worried about those limits down low. You can run a lot more boost a lot earlier with higher ethanol content, and that'll get you there. But it's so much more complicated and expensive to get that working. It usually doesn't make sense. You might as well go with a big turbo setup. But if you're just hell bent on getting a stock turbo record, that'll usually get you there. That will get you there. Basically, if I want full sauce, yeah. I mean, for all intents and purposes, it doesn't make sense to get a custom tune on the stock turbo. You've really got, like what I was just talking about, you've really got to want to max it out with port injection or just squeezing out every bit of torque that you can get with an upgraded fuel pump. But it doesn't make sense for most people. You might as well just upgrade your turbo instead. That's a lot of money to put into the stock turbo just to be slower than somebody that spent a lot less. Let's see. Do I think the AMS intake manifold will fit the M340? It should. Yeah. Anything for TU should fit across TU engines. They're a lot more similar. A lot of people have put TU intake manifolds on the Gen 1s, and it requires some modifications for like the emission plugs and stuff, but some people have made it work. But if you have a TU, then it should be a lot closer, if not the same. Do I think the CTS Turbo for Gen 1 will be available before Christmas? I do, but I'm not always right. So we'll see. I think we've got some other turbo options that should be coming out before the end of the year too. So I can't say it's definitely worth waiting. You know, if you really want to get going, the season's almost up. Maybe it's worth waiting for Black Friday, seeing what comes out before the end of the year before you make a decision. But, you know, there are a lot of good options out there already. Yeah, I think it's worth buying upgraded valve springs. Not for most people. Like for most things like that, I recommend waiting until you hit the limit before spending money, because you can't assume that you're going to hit a limit in a space where not that many people have been and are providing like good data. You can't really make that decision until you know that's the problem you're having. Does a high pressure fuel pump add power on its own? No. So a high pressure fuel pump gives you more fuel capacity, but you need a tune to take advantage of your fuel pump in order for it to make any more power. So, I mean, just like the stock turbo, like it doesn't make more power without a tune. It can run 20 PSI, but out of the factory, it makes 10 PSI, and you need a tune that actually takes advantage of the increased capacity in your turbo. Same thing with a fuel pump or pretty much any other upgrade. Yeah, I got you, man. If you send me a log, let me know. If you've got the off-the-shelf log, that'll help too, and we can actually compare it. Because if you've got clean timing, maybe your off-the-shelf log was just kind of running on the ragged edge. I don't know. And if I think you were the one that was saying you were on E70, definitely consider dialing it back. E70 isn't going to be the right sauce for DI only. Sorry if you guys see like a fly flying around. I can't get it. One time I decided to hang out in the garage. What port injection kit do I recommend? Yeah, so I've got a video on my Precision Raceworks turbo or my Precision Raceworks port injection install. You can also buy it through my affiliate link at BimmerNetwork. He's got everything that you could need to make that work. He sells the motive reflex and all that stuff. So the link is in the description of pretty much all my videos, and you can check that one out. The only difference from like EOS is that you have to like trim the manifold, but the benefit is the position of the injectors is better. It's consistent across all cylinders, whereas some of the other ones have the cylinder 6 injector pointed at the cylinder wall, which I think we all like to make sure that our cylinder 6 stays happy. So I like that the Precision Raceworks one has the injector mounted in the middle of every single cylinder. So I know all cylinders are getting the same amount of fuel, the same spray pattern, all of that good stuff. So I highly recommend it. Let's see. Is the TU high pressure fuel pump good with stock intake and stock turbo without second Lambda sensor? You cannot run without the second Lambda sensor. So I think there's a big misconception there. I can't remember if I made a video on that or not. I think I talked about it in my O2 sensor video, but a lot of people say like they're getting codes for their O2 sensor, or they want to delete their O2 sensor because they have a downpipe. You cannot do that. It's still a part of your fuel calculation. It's just going to disable the code for not having a CAT, but you have to have your O2 sensors if you want proper fuel control. So hopefully I didn't like grab that out of your sentence when you meant something else, but that's not recommended at all. Yeah, Bennett, I'm glad I can help. You know, this isn't like my first rodeo, and I know how it was going through my first rodeo, so I just like talking about this stuff. I like these kinds of conversations. I feel like it helps improve how the community is, and we're asking more from the aftermarket because we're more informed, right? So it's kind of a win-win for everybody. I think this is just going to help grow the platform even more once we're all on the same page. Let's see, timing correction versus knock. I see a lot of timing corrections in my log, but knock pretty much stays at 0. So I've seen some mixed feedback on this, and I know in my like previous platforms I come from, the knock isn't always the most accurate way to measure if there's an issue. Timing correction is what I focus on, because if there are any issues with knock or heat or anything, it will cause a timing correction. But the knock doesn't always register depending on like the frequency of your logging software. So that's been my experience. That's why I don't even log knock, to be honest, unless I know like something's wrong where it's going to be knocking consistently in the same spot. But I feel like timing corrections is a better indicator of a problem, because you'll see timing just drop to 0 or have like 9 degrees of correction, and that's when the problems are. Yeah, man. If you guys don't notice, pretty much all of my DIY come out in like January, February, March. It's because I buy everything on Black Friday. So you don't have to explain to me why you're waiting to buy something. I wait for deals. I buy stuff used. I buy stuff cheap. I'm not the kind of person that just likes spending money, and I am very patient. Like I said, I figure out what I want, figure out what my goals are, ignore everybody else, and just find the best deal that I can get on it. So no shame in my game. Definitely worth waiting, I think, for a lot of the options that will be coming out, and of course the better deals. Just as always, sometimes wait times can be worse on Black Friday depending on how many people place orders. But if you can be patient, you don't feel like just ruining your car and spinning way worse in winter where you don't have traction anyway, it's worth it. Let's see, what are some quick things to check for with horrible gas mileage? So the first thing is to check your right foot. You know, if you're having too much fun, that's probably why you're having bad gas mileage. Also, just check for fuel leaks. If you have a fuel leak, that could definitely be a problem. Check your AFRs and your logs and see if that's indicating you have any leaks. You know, if it's running super lean or super rich, like a injector stuck open or something, that's always worth checking out too. I've seen some 800 horsepower B58s. Me too, brother. Let's see, when I was at TX2K, there was an A90 with nitrous at 900, but has someone broke the 1,000 horsepower mark? Yeah. Body's at, I think, 1,200 horsepower. Double check me on that. My man, what's going on? I would say lock in, but I don't feel like getting rolled up. I got to introduce you to Steve, because he was at Edgewater. He has a white A90, I think, with a pure 800 too. But I don't know what times he ran, but you guys got to meet. Let's see. On the highway to California, I was getting 35 miles per gallon, but that's coasting. Just regular driving on the road, I get 13. Well, I mean, that depends too, right? I mean, mixed driving, I average around 22 to 23. And I have fun in my car. So there are definitely instances where I get less than 20. If all you're doing is city driving, then you're definitely going to get less than 20, especially if you're running ethanol. So you can't really complain about that. Let's see, I want to do stage 2 plus with boot mode. You won't regret it. Go for it. Highly recommend it. How many miles do I have? So I am almost at 25,000 miles. And I'll be posting a video because I've actually had the car for 5 years as of last Thursday. So I made a video driving around just kind of talking about my experience and stuff. But I average about 5,000 miles a year. How big of a discount do you see on big turbo kits? It really depends, man. And especially like Vargas, every single year he has the same sales. If you guys pay attention, it's like every day he has a different sale, but I think it's Saturday, either Friday or Saturday is when he does the turbo sale, and it's like 25% off or something, 25 or 30% off. So you can, I mean, literally plan for that. Like you can calculate when that's going to happen and place your order at 12:01 a.m. or whenever he turns it on, and make sure you're one of the first orders to get it. So, and Big Boost does the same thing. They always do like 5 turbos for $1,000 off or something like that, but it's first come, first serve. So, I mean, these turbos go on sale every year. I think the only ones that don't go on sale is DOCRace, unfortunately. So I waited to buy it on Black Friday when I got it, and it didn't go on sale, but I got it anyway. Let's see. What do I recommend in mileage? Mileage isn't really a huge deal on the B58. Somebody on YouTube has like 180,000 miles on theirs. The main thing is just making sure the maintenance is up to date. If you don't know it very well, get a dealership or a technician to review it and just make sure that it's clean. That's really the main thing. Check the PCV, check your coolant levels, and if everything checks out, just enjoy the car. Are valve stem seals failure a common issue? I don't think it's common, but it's possible, just like on any other platform. That was actually the original diagnosis on the 340. So I just haven't been able to find evidence that that's a problem. So that's why I'm just kind of putting it back together, and I'm going to drive it around. Let's see. Could you talk about port injection rails with lines that work with the OEM manifold? So we don't have, if you mean like something that you can literally just screw into the plastic manifold, we don't have anything like that. I think the S58 cars were the best example of how that should work, because they literally have the bosses in the manifold that you can just drill them out and then mount your injectors there. It was designed for port injection. They just didn't install port injection on the current S58 cars. What I think would be cool is if the new B58s that are coming out, the TU3s or the TU2s, when those come with port injection, when can we take those plastic manifolds and put them on our cars? And that might be like a $300 way or whatever, $400 way to swap it over. But I mean, if it has the intercooler installed and all that stuff, it might be more expensive. We'll just have to see. But if you have a manifold with port injection integrated, it's going to flow a lot better than a regular like spacer. So that's the biggest downside. I was smoking Camaros on Saturday, took a road trip 4 hours each way and was getting 37 miles per gallon. Boom. That's how you do it. What's up, Raw? How you doing, man? Oh, bro. So my parents just left. My parents are from the Virgin Islands, and so they live in St. Lucia. They both retired back there right now. So you just gave me a couple flashbacks. Look on, man. Do I think your car will be drivable in Cincy winter? Absolutely. It's going to suck, but it'll drive. What's good, everybody? A lot of new people joining. How long did the stock turbos last? Mine has 62,000 miles on it now, 12,000 tuned. I don't think there's a big problem with turbos, man. I mean, keep in mind, a lot of the parts that people are replacing or concerned about aren't designed to last the life of the engine. Like injectors aren't designed to fail. Turbos aren't designed to fail. PCVs aren't designed to fail. If you have a problem with it, then it can fail. And that's where you got N54 things, you know, like they just know that their turbos are going to crap out. But that shouldn't be an expectation or like a default. And I just haven't seen any evidence that these are things that are like regular maintenance. Like when you hit 100,000 miles, replace your engine. No, you know, like can it fail? Sure. But that's not something that you do. It's just like any other sensor or anything else on the car. You replace it when it fails until we see evidence that they're just like crapping out left and right. Let's see. I recently got the boot mode flex fuel kit and the TU pump, changed out spark plugs and coils, but a week later it started to misfire. Sounds about right. Yeah, if you got me on Instagram, Facebook, or anything, just send me a log and I can take a look at it. I know a lot of you guys are doing this stuff blind, and I just highly recommend running logs. Nothing can tell you more about how your car is performing than using the tools that you're given. So find some space, run a log, see how it's working, scan for codes, see what it's telling you, and that's how you fix your issues. But especially with off-the-shelf maps, it's designed for like the general public, but it's not perfect for anybody except for the one car they dialed it in on. So you've got to test it and see how it's performing for you. Okay, so you heard me talking about the O2 sensor and you put a spacer which removed the CEL. Are you risking messing something up? So our cars are extremely sensitive. The 420 code is the CAT efficiency code. So that's what gets disabled by a regular tune. Carbon, like I said, is super focused on emissions and things like that, so they do not disable the code, and that's what allows them to be CARB certified, like basically all the emissions requirements in California and stuff. They're able to meet those because they don't disable any emissions codes. So the spacer is fine. If the spacer is too large, it can throw another code because it's going to affect your fueling, and it can basically tell that the O2 sensor isn't responding as quickly as it should. But if you don't get a check engine light for that, then you're fine. But don't disable it, don't remove it, and just plug the port on your downpipe. All of that is bad. Yeah, dude. Okay, so I mean, I know I've been around for a while, but somebody else has to see this stuff, right? Like on Black Friday, all of these deals that come up, they're ridiculous. Like people are getting big boost kits for like $3,500 or $3,000 or something. They go on ridiculous sales, but like I said, it's first come, first serve. You got to follow their social media, follow them on Facebook. Usually it's announced by Trevor at BimmerNetwork or somebody that's affiliated. And then you got to get that message in and send your money, So just be ready. That's when all the crazy deals are. Let's see. I have stage 2 plus and make 100 to 200 in 8.1 seconds. I think that's good. Is it pump gas or ethanol? I think the fastest that I saw on ethanol was like 7.6 or 7.7. What's up, everybody? Stage 2 MG flashers, trash on fuel economy. No, your right foot is trash on fuel economy, my friend. Nobody has good fuel economy if they're enjoying their car. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. Does changing the ZF8 fluid help with clutch slipping? Not necessarily. If your fluid is low, it can cause issues, but just replacing the fluid won't necessarily help a clutch slip if, especially if you're overpowered, like making too much torque or something like that. Pretty much permanent damage can be done. It might go away for a little while and come back, and you'll just have to deal with it until you get it fixed. What's my take on Vargas and Pure 800? So if you're looking to make less than 600 horsepower, Vargas GC, good. If you want over 600 horsepower, get the Pure. All right. Oh, crap. Sorry, I'm falling behind on comments. I should try making a video on how to read logs and what exactly is to look out for. I made this video. Nobody sees it because it's like 30 minutes long. I'll try to make one that's smaller because just the fact that so many people are telling me to make a video that I made 2 years ago tells me that the video sucks. So I'll do what I can. But if you scroll back on my page, search for BMW logging guide or something like that, and my video will come up. It's just very long because I went through every thought that I had in my mind at that time. I really didn't know what I was doing. So yeah, it sounds like I need to make something that's a little more straight to the point for that. Do I recommend a huge turbo like the GTX 1000 if I plan to stay stock internals? It definitely doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? I'm just a big fan of full frame turbos. They generate less heat. They run more efficiently, even on low boost. It's fun. It sounds cool. It's much cooler to say, in my opinion. I don't know. You can call me a hype beast or whatever, but I just enjoy a full frame turbo much more than a hybrid. So I guess you kind of just need to make that decision for yourself. If you can afford it, if you think you'll ever use it to its full capacity, there's really not a lot of downsides other than it's more expensive. I just want to sneak into the nines without spending a house. Yeah, talk to Adrian, man. He definitely snuck in there. That man was stuck at 10.01 for a year and a half and then finally squeezed out a 9.9. Let's see. It gave me cylinder 6 misfire, but it's on a custom tune for E40 and 91. I got the rest of the supporting mods, intake, charge pipe, and downpipe. Mainly misfires at idle and revs up from 1 to 2K. Yeah, man, wherever it misfires, run a log. So if it's misfiring at idle, run a log. If it's when cruising, run a log while you're cruising. Basically, try to see if you can capture in your diagnostics what it looks like when the issue occurs. That's the best way to figure out where the problem's coming from. Do I think the new Pure 800 will go on sale? Yep. What are my favorite full frame turbo kits? I mean, my favorite is DOCRace. I like how it's designed. I think the Cody kit is going to be really, really good. It uses a G35 turbo with an internal gate with a bottom mount tubular manifold. It's just really, really nice looking, and they're making really good performance times, but there's like one car with it. So we just got to wait and see if they put it on more cars and if it performs the same for everybody. I also think it might be pretty hard to install because of the design of the manifold. It doesn't look like it'll be easy to access all the nuts and stuff to mount it, but it looks like it's going to perform really well. And I like tubular manifolds. The top mount kit is, of course, my first pick, but even with a bottom mount kit, I prefer a tubular one. Let's see. How do I load a custom tune on MHD? And do you need a tablet or computer? All you need is a phone. In the app, it shows like flash an MHD map, flash a stock map, flash a custom map, or whatever. So you click on flash a custom map. You have to have your map downloaded to your phone or your tablet or whatever device you're using. So you find it, click on that, and then it'll flash just like an off-the-shelf map. You can pick your custom options and all of that and then flash it. Let's see, 2.5 turbo on TU pump versus Dorch. How much power do you want to make? If you want to make less than 600, TU is fine. If you're only going to run pump gas, TU is fine. If you want anything above and beyond that, get a Dorch. Dorch stage 2, not a stage 1. If I add a Pure 800, am I running the risk of blowing my engine without internals? So again, I mean, the way that a turbo upgrade works is you have more power capacity. If you're limited by your fuel, your trans, anything, it's not going to make the most power that it can make. So just because you put a Pure 800 on your car doesn't mean that you're making 800 horsepower, even if it had the capacity to do that. So just because you put it on your car doesn't mean you're going to blow your engine. It doesn't mean that your transmission is going to slip. It doesn't mean that you're going to lean out. You just tune your car within the limits of your system. So that's why I'm able to run a DOCRace top mount turbo kit with an OEM clutch. That's why I was able to run it with a TU pump. You know, like all this stuff is possible with a tune that takes into account what your limits are. And that's all that matters. So, I mean, there are plenty of people that run Pure 800s on the stock engine, on the stock transmission. You just need a tune. You need a tune that's safe. Don't go to somebody that's going to tune your car on, 14 AFR and try to lean it out to squeeze out as much power as possible. Just get a safe tune for your setup and you'll be fine. But I know that's still like a big misconception. Everybody just assumes that putting something that supports big power means you're making big power, and that's not the case. I think the worst that I see is when somebody puts a part on their car and tells everybody that they're making as much power as like a dyno as they saw on the internet. Oh, this car made 800 wheel horsepower, so when I put the Pure on my car, it makes 800 wheel horsepower. No, that's not how it works. Your car, your setup, your tune, you need to get it tested yourself to know how much power you're making. Let's see, Flomax plus DS1 on 92 octane, how much wheel horsepower? It depends. You should be able to make between 500 and 550, probably like low 500s, but it'll depend on the tune. Do I have dyno numbers with my Doc TU pump setup? Yep, I actually have a whole like 6-minute video on my channel, but peak it made, I think 590. So I have seen over 600 on pump gas on like one freak car, but my car made 590. The Pure Turbos car like 2 years ago made 586. I've seen several cars make between like 550 and 600 with an ethanol mix and an upgraded turbo. It just kind of depends. And those are dyno jet figures. I got to clarify that every time. What do I think the power I have were a 100 to 200 time at 8.1? Probably around like 450, 440. Something like that. I think for mid sevens, you need to be closer to like 500 range, around like 470 to 500 to get down to like a 7.5. What's up? Lots of new people. Thank you everybody for joining. Just a reminder, I will be posting a YouTube video after this to explain the channel memberships and stuff. So if you guys have seen me talk about it and you have any questions, that video will answer it. No, I am not charging to watch videos on the channel. It's just an extra way that you guys can support. So that video will explain how I'm using it and how I'm trying to use it to give back to the community. All right, let's see, more comments. What's the perfect power range for the car to still handle great? The M240 handles great. I just don't want to have to resort to running slicks to sacrifice its handling. So there's a lot of stuff that goes into like a well-balanced car. I think my car handles great regardless of how much power it's making. But if I'm going full throttle into, a turn, I just have to hit my brakes earlier if I'm making more power, right? So if you're worried about handling, focus on your tires, focus on your suspension, regardless of how much power you're making. If it spins a little bit or whatever in lower gears, like it is what it is. Especially for track days, you're not going to be running under like 40 miles per hour 9 times out of 10. So it doesn't really make sense to be concerned about it. You can also run a boost by gear setup, so you can run lower boost and lower gears to help maintain traction. But all the power is in your right foot. So even if you're going around a turn, you can't just floor it because your wheel's at 90 degrees. So yeah, none of that really affects handling in that sense. I think that our cars are perfect in the 600 to 650 horsepower range. That's where I am. Drives great. Again, sometimes it spins in the lower gears. I just don't really care. I'm not really launching my car or drag racing my car. I'm maybe like you, I mostly care about handling. So the power is fun at higher speeds, but it doesn't really like make it undrivable or difficult to handle around turns. You just got to manage partial throttle, make sure you get brakes, and you're good. Let's see, I ordered my downpipe, just not sure which to get, MHD or boot mode. It's a toss-up. I probably said this 5 times on the stream, but I don't have a coin to flip. But if I did, I would. That's really what it comes down to. I have MHD now primarily because of the reflex integration, but for just basic maps, they're very, very close. So, and I have a full video explaining all the details and differences that I found between boot mode and MHD. So you guys can watch that too if you want more information. What power numbers do you see on normal performance tires before they need slicks? I think you guys just gotta you gotta have like a better frame of reference for this, because you can run slicks on a completely stock car. Like my car could spin first if I wanted it to completely stock. So what are your actual goals? If you want to have the absolute fastest car in a drag race, then run slicks. Like, it doesn't matter. Just run slicks. You know what I mean? If you don't care about that, then don't. If you want to run a street tire like I do, or, I would basically run like an autocross tire, you can do that. If you want to run a street tire, all seasons, whatever, you can do that. It's a limitation of the system, but it doesn't cause a problem. You know what I mean? Your car just doesn't have as high of a limit as a car that's running slicks. But you're also not going to be spinning out in the rain. You're also not going to be replacing tires every 1,000 miles. So there are pros and cons to everything. Just build the car how you like and enjoy it. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to handle every situation the best, but that doesn't matter. Like, it's still fun. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of direction. I mean, there are literally Supras, like people buy Supras, bring them home, put them on a drag pack, and take them to the drag strip on a stock tune to see how fast they can go. You know what I mean? Like, you can do whatever you want, but it's not like there's a limitation there that it's going to prevent the car from being drivable or something. Yeah. What tire setup do you recommend for drag racing? I mean, the stickiest tire you can get, the better. If your car is rear-wheel drive on an MT40, you can probably fit a 245 or 255 in the rear pretty easily. Just remember, track tires run typically wider than street tires, so don't go too crazy on the sizing. even if you can fit like a 265 or 275 Michelin, you probably want something a little bit skinnier for like an R888 or, you know, a Hoosier or something. But yeah, run a really high offset too, like ET45, maybe even ET50. That'll help you fit the widest tire possible in the back. And then in the front, just run like an all season or something that has really low grip, really low resistance, and that'll allow you to carry speed. All right, let's keep scrolling on Instagram. Thank you guys for the support. Thank you everybody that says you like the videos. I really do appreciate it because I don't know what I'm doing. So thank you. What's a safe wheel horsepower mark on a pure 800 setup? B58 Gen 1 pump gas. So usually that makes between 500 and 550. That's a pretty reliable setup to expect. It depends on the tune, your fuel quality, and all that good stuff, but that's where most people land. You can basically imagine like whatever you make on pump gas on your stock turbo, add like 70 horsepower. That's what you can expect with a pure. Oh, yep, somebody else got it too. When do I need to start worrying about the drive shaft? So everybody talking about tires, that's another risk. If you're running a super aggressive tire setup, that's when you start typically running into drive shaft issues. Pretty much everybody that I know that has twisted a drive shaft was running something, either an R-comp or a slick. You can even do that on the stock turbo. You know, you put a slick on your car, launch it really hard, send all of that torque to the weakest link, it's going to twist your drive shaft. It's just something that can happen. It might last 5 times, it might last 100 times, but that's where all the stress is going to be. So you got to decide, is that really worth it for you? But the power, it doesn't really matter. Like I said, on my car, I'm making over 600. Sometimes the car spins, but it doesn't really matter to me because it's not damaging much. It's not twisting the drive shaft, shredding a gear. I'd rather burn a little bit of rubber than put that extra stress on my bearing. And that's just my choice. I'm satisfied with it. If I spin, it doesn't bother me because of that. I'm happy with my choice there. But I'm just slow, so don't listen to me. Spence, what's up, my man? I haven't been out in a while, but I know you're still working on your stuff too, so I don't feel too bad. When we both get fully dialed in, we'll get out there. Let's see, best downpipe for the B58, whatever is in stock and not like over $300, $400. Usually used is the way I go. I bought all my downpipes used actually. So I have a VRSF downpipe, or I had one that I bought used, and then I also have a VRSF on the 340. Definitely plan to get some radials. Would you recommend skinnies in the front? Just be careful, okay? That's what I would say, because skinnies really suck, especially driving on the street. Anything that requires more than like a 3-degree turn, you're gonna feel a lot more unsure of the car, especially on the highway too. You know, you can slap them on there when you get on the track and take them off, but typically I recommend people just run like all seasons or something low resistance up front that still can be driven on the street without being so like sketchy, especially if you have radials in the back. That's already going to shimmy a little bit. It's not going to want to, you know, drive straight. It's going to tram line with dips in the road and all that stuff. So I just don't like the idea of that personally. But I mean, it's manageable. Obviously people do it. It's just something to be aware of. Yeah, if you're only racing on it, it's a lot less risk. Put them in the trunk, drive it to the strip and slap them on. You're golden. Sorry, I got to remember some people think like that, because most people are like, oh, can I do this? And then they daily drive to work in November and complain because, you know, they got stuck or something, or they spun out on the highway. Why did I give MG Flasher a try? Because of my tuner. I wanted to work with Marin, and he does not tune on boot mode. And that's really one of the main things I usually recommend to people. If you're working with a custom tuner, or if you have a custom tuner in mind for the future, just double check and make sure that you know what tuning software they support, because they're not going to change for you. So yeah, that's what I do. I just make sure that I'm working with software that my tuner uses, and that way I'm not spending the same money twice. Yeah, man, I'm doing great. Appreciate it. Hopefully in the next month or so, I'll be done. I just don't have time to log. So yeah, it's taken me pretty much this whole season, and we've been tuning since I think May. And I mean, we're making 4 maps, so that's a part of it too, and then the flex fuel part of it. But if I could actually log every time he sent me a new tune and just get that going, I would have been done months ago. So a lot of it's my fault. I just don't have time. All right, it looks like it's been about 2 hours now, so I think we're going to shut it down. Thanks again to everybody that has joined. Again, I did turn on channel memberships on the YouTube channel. So if you guys are interested in how that's going to work, the video should go live probably in the next 15 minutes or so. It's not like a cash grab. It's not going to mean that you guys have to pay to watch my videos or anything like that. I just want to use it to create more content. And then everything that we use the money for, I'm going to try to help give it back to the community. So check out the video that I'm posting later today if you guys are interested in that. Thank you to everybody that has joined and become a channel member already. And yeah, hopefully we'll see if that'll help us grow a little more in the future. So I think that's about it. Thank you guys. Talk to you later.